really quickly and the type of risk people are pricing in with their credit default swaps here?
Yeah, so AIG is about, it's been a pretty crazy couple of days. AIG trading this morning about what we call 12% up front. So in English, that's about 400 basis points wider or about 50% worse now than it was on Friday. And that price is out at about a 20%, 25% chance of AIG actually going into default. Certainly, it seems their subsidiary, ILFC, which is they've talked about sort of spinning off.
That is the aircraft lending business, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, International Finance Corporation, I think is the full name. But that trades separately in the credit market also, and that is trading considerably better today. So and considerably about half as risky as AIG. So really, it's the market in credit land is saying, yes, they're going to spin them off, and yes, they're a lot better company on their own than with AIG. So that's kind of an interesting point.
Tim, it's Brian. Quickly, obviously, there's been a lot of rumors around AIG. Warren Buffett's name has been bandied about maybe the unusual ability of AIG to tap that discount window. With that news that has come out in the last couple of hours, have we seen a firming up in those swaps? I mean, and what I'm trying to say is if those stories go away, will we go back trading to an even more difficult situation for AIG?
Yeah, I think the Buffett rumors or news or whatever you want to call it, those things come and go every single time. And I think a lot of the market, the credit market right now is so focused on the big indices. So where the sort of investment grade credit trades, where counterparty risk trades, rather than the single names. The bid offers, the sort of transactional costs are just huge today. And I think that's pulling a lot of people away from putting big-sized trades on in single names. But certainly, if that rumor is completely dismissed and the window doesn't open nicely for them from the Fed or from the sort of new fund that's being delivered, then AIG goes considerably wider from here.
I just want to update our viewers very quickly. We are waiting for President Bush to speak, Tim, so we might have to jump in on you. We got a live shot up of the White House. President Bush is expected to make comments with the president of Ghana, I believe, but he's expected to make comments about the financial market situation here. So just so we know that we are waiting on President Bush. We've got
more than 300 points. It's only down about 190 points now. This is all fallout, of course, from the news that two major investment banks are disappearing after the federal government refused to bail them out. Lehman Brothers filing for bankruptcy, Merrill Lynch taken over by the Bank of America. The other concern of the day, the giant insurance company AIG seeking emergency funds because of mounting debt. All of this stems from the subprime mortgage meltdown, and Lehman Brothers is burdened with at least $60 billion in bad real estate investments. President Bush is coming out to the lecterns, accompanied by the visiting president of Ghana. Both be speaking about important issues, but we expect to hear from President Bush first, talking about the financial markets.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be here with my friend, the president of Ghana, John Kufuor. We just had a very good discussion. And before I summarize it, I do want to say a word about the U.S. economy. I know Americans are concerned about the adjustments that are taking place in our financial markets. At the White House and throughout my administration, we're focused on them. And we're working to reduce disruptions and minimize the impact of these financial market developments on the broader economy. I've been in close touch with Secretary Paulson throughout this weekend and this morning. I appreciate the work that the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve and the Securities Exchange Commission and major financial institutions here and around the world are doing to promote stability in the financial systems. As policymakers, we're focused on the health of the financial system as a whole. In the short run, adjustments in the financial markets can be painful, both for the people concerned about their investments and for the employees of the affected firms. In the long run, I'm confident that our capital markets are flexible and resilient and can deal with these adjustments. I admire President Kufuor. And the reason I do is because he has shown the world.
To the president.
before I summarize it, I do want to say a word about the U.S. economy. I know Americans are concerned about, and I know you are as well. We had a good discussion about important issues such as fighting disease. One of the initiatives that we're working on together is the fight against neglected tropical diseases. And the President brought me up to date on the strategy to deal with that important issue and how we can help. We're talking about obviously fighting malaria. And the good news is that this is a government that's very capable of taking American help and converting it into the kind of results that we all expect. We talked about education and economic opportunity. The United States supports vital educational partnerships in Ghana. We're training teachers.
President Bush now continuing with his regularly scheduled news conference with the President of Ghana, interrupting his news conference for remarks about the economy upon news about Lehman Brothers and also about Merrill Lynch over the weekend. We've got Erin Burnett, who covers the markets for CNBC. She's at the New York Stock Exchange for us this morning. Erin, we heard the President talk about adjustments in the financial markets and talking about how the administration is working to reduce disruptions. First of all, the word adjustments was obviously one he used twice. How important is it for the President to use that particular word? And also, what is the government doing, do you think, behind the scenes to make this thing more stabilized?
It's a great point, Ann, to talk about his use of the word adjustment as well as disruption. Certainly that is what the market has undergone this weekend, perhaps more so than any weekend in the history of American finance, and also over the past 6 months. 3 of the 5 investment banks in this country now either no longer exist, whether they are bankrupt or whether they are being bought by other companies. So certainly adjustment is the word of the day. I think, though, Ann, the headline here is that you've got the White House on board with the Federal Reserve, with the Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Paulson, and with 10 of the biggest banks in the world, actually, it's not beyond the United States, working together to try to minimize the disruption that we have seen. And that is really the key level here, because when you look at the market, and I'm looking up, we were off about 300 points. We're now only down 180. And, Ann, the takeaway from that is it could be a whole lot worse. And this is proof that this unified front, at least so far, appears to be having its intended effect.
That said, the day is not over, and the market does not close, I think, until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. The President talked about flexible. He was confident that the capital markets are flexible and resilient. He's sending, obviously, a message, and the question will be, how will the market respond to this? At what point do you think we are out of the woods in terms of our worry about the impact of this news about Lehman Brothers and Merrill Lynch on the broader economy, on the markets today in addition?
Well, Ann, if I had the answer to that question, I could be president. But I mean, not to make light of it, no one really knows the answer to that question. 2 important things to tell you, though. We did just see the press conference between Bank of America's CEO Ken Lewis and John Thain, the CEO of Merrill Lynch. Bank of America, of course, in a sudden deal which started Saturday morning buying Merrill Lynch. Ken Lewis is saying this in terms of when this might be over. The U.S. economy likely not going to start recovering until the end of next year, and that a lot of these big billion-dollar write-downs that we keep seeing in the headlines could continue well into 2010. So no end in sight in terms of the overall economy, but perhaps in terms of some of the crisis, there are some issues still to be felt. And the headline on that front that I would bring to your attention, Ann, today is AIG. It's not Lehman, it's not Merrill, it's AIG. It's the world's biggest insurer. Shares have been plunging, and the fate of that company, as of now, is issue number 1 for the markets.
Well, in fact, then that brings a broader question, because as you've been reporting all this morning, there are a couple now of these kinds of financial institutions that are still standing after now 3 that have been dissolved as a result of these financial issues regarding the credit crisis. So I guess the question there is, sort of how people should be responding to those particular banks. Are we worrying that the foundation of our house has been so rattled so far, or I guess I'm trying to sort of understand for the economy, what would be the best thing that we should take away from the events over the course of the last 4 days? Those of us who don't trade with stocks, but who are really worried about the financial future of this country.
I think there's two takeaways, and the first one, Ann, is I would say it's always better to be safe than sorry. And if you have just a bank account, if you have a simple brokerage account, if you have an insurance policy, it's worth making a phone call and just confirming that your downside is covered. And in the vast majority of cases in this country, it will be. But that's just prudent, and it's something that that everybody should do. In terms of your bigger question, I think there's a way to tell that story in the market too. This economy is one of the most resilient economies in the world. When you look at new business formation, when you look at a lot of the strength that the American economy has, it is, in a sense, the best that the world has to offer. And when you look at these big companies that are facing crisis, they are facing crisis. Their stocks have plunged, and they are banks. But when you look at banks overall in this country, they are well capitalized. Their stock price over the past couple.
More contestant, where are they?
Here they come. It's Jordan Cart. Come on down. You're the next.
More than likely that the price would have declined on Monday. But Merrill Lynch has quite a bit of liquidity, and I think they could have seen their way through this. And so you would have the issue of them going on their separate way, or you could have had somebody else come in, and we thought there were other people that were interested in buying a stake, and missed it completely. So you never can, or most people can't pick the bottom. The strategic opportunity was so compelling that we felt like going for the last dollar had too much risk to it compared to seizing on the opportunity and going forward with this.
What if somebody else does come in? Are you prepared to pay a higher price?
Well, we have some things in the contract that would actually cause it to be very expensive for somebody to overturn it. So I don't think that's going to happen. And there's only so much wherewithal out there, to compete with us.
Let me ask you about the work put into it over the weekend. Clearly, this was done in a very rapid fashion. Tell us about the due diligence. You did this deal in 48 hours. You take on more than $1 trillion in assets. You comfortable with the due diligence you did? Yeah,
I really am. First of all, we're in the same businesses. And actually, we are very good, have a core competency of due diligence and in making acquisitions. We know where to go look. Many of the instruments are similar to what we have. Leveraged loans, you actually have some overlap. And so and the methodology we use on coming to valuations was very similar. On top of that, we hired J.C. Flowers, who we knew had been in Merrill Lynch for about a week, looking at valuations, looking at other things. And so when they came in, theirs was just an update on what they had already done. And so the combination of our views and then reinforced by J.C. Flowers and company's views gave us great confidence that their marks were good. And he actually made the comment that it was night and day from the first time they had been in and this time, which is a credit to John Thain and his team in terms of getting the marks right.
Standard & Poor's is talking about your ratings, downgrading, and talking about the expense of this transaction. Does this mean you will have to cut your dividend? Is your dividend in jeopardy to pay for this deal?
Well, the issue will be as we go forward. How much capital do we need to grow this company and make sure that we're the best in the industry and that we can serve our clients and gain market share at a critical time. And so we'll look at all options. People have mentioned the profit in China Construction Bank. We want to look at our risk-weighted assets and make sure we're taking the appropriate ones down. So there are a lot of things we can do to raise capital, including obviously the dividend cut, and we'll be looking at that over the next few months. So we've got a board meeting in October, and we'll have a better view of what we want to do in terms of recommending to our board. But what the whole focus is get this company as strong as possible to make sure we can take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be before us in the next few quarters.
And nothing is off the table in terms of doing that.
Right.
Okay. Let me ask you about the brokers. Clearly the jewel of the Merrill Lynch franchise, the financial advisors. Tell us about attrition. How are you going to ensure that those brokers stay and not go and look at competitors or open their own business at this point?
We're going to do several things. First, we're going to make sure they know we're going to keep the name. Secondly, which would be, to me, an obvious, we should. It's a great name worldwide. Secondly, we will have some retention bonuses. We'll be communicating about retention bonuses. Thirdly, we want to tell them the opportunity they have with the 8 million customers that we have that are so-called mass affluent, that really is the sweet spot of Merrill Lynch. And so instead of having to do cold prospecting calls, they're going to be getting a lot of referrals from that huge consumer banking system. So I don't, if they'll listen to the story, they are actually missing the opportunity of a lifetime if they're going somewhere else.
And what other businesses other than the brokerage business, financial advisory business, is most complementary to Bank of America? Where do you see the biggest opportunity and synergy for you?
I think the biggest one outside of the financial advisors is the international global platform that Merrill Lynch has in terms of the investment banking side, lined up with our big corporate banking international capabilities. And so we have, both in the U.S. and internationally, we have huge corporate banking market shares. 99% of the Fortune 500 bank with us here, about 83% of the international Fortune 500. And so that's the strength of a commercial bank. We have the relationships. And so we can now bring in a much broader breadth of products to those companies who we know well, who we finance, and who will be receptive to that.
There's an enormous amount of sticky business,
yeah, there is,
as you would say. Right. You've said many times in interviews with me that investment banking is too volatile, and you don't necessarily want to be in that business. You are in that business now in a big way. What changed?
Well, this gives us the size and scale to be able to attract and retain the best talent, to not have to be so narrowly focused that you're always worrying about scale, you're always worrying about your associates' question about whether you're committed to the business, and it's not just about the investment bank. It is about wealth management as well. And so, according to how you valued that wealth management business, you got the investment bank hopefully for a very attractive price.
Is it fair to say that the most overlap here is in fixed income? Is it fair to expect that that's where layoffs may come?
Yeah, I think that is our strength, the fixed income side, and I think
crazy devastation in Texas.
And so. That's very complimentary. It's very complimentary to
way, and obviously the bad securities were, of course, follow the bad lending. A lot of that stuff has been really written down. I think people have really talked that the subprime game is very much near the end. Really, the next sort of concern is the consumer, and the consumer is actually getting some relief in some ways, with mortgage rates having come down so tremendously because of the Fed's actions with Fannie and Freddie. The consumer actually can potentially refi. And or if they have option arms, their option arms are now going to reset lower, so they're going to get some relief. If the consumer has home equity loans that are variable, well, if the Fed cuts, their prime will come down that commensurate amount. So energy prices, we've seen that, come off the consumer as well.
Anton, we really appreciate your time on this amazing day. Anton Schutz, Minden Capital Advisors. Thank you very much. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll come back. We'll continue our special coverage of what is happening on Wall Street. You are watching Fox Business or listening on XM channel 128. We're back after
this. Tonight, you blew your budget on a summer getaway. Now you're stuck with the stress of paying it off. Relax. Dave's got tips for dumping your vacation debt. The Dave Ramsey Show special, Summer Vacation Regrets. The captioning for this program is brought to you by
Urgent Pharmaceutical Recall Alert. If your loved one was hospitalized or died while on Digitech, please call 1-800-LAW-FIRM. That's 1-800-LAW-FIRM.
Most people only see insurance as something you need when things go wrong. But at Genworth, we look at it differently. We think when you work with someone who sees insurance as part of creating your financial security, you'll move forward in life. Think it possible. Genworth Financial.
If you plan on building, furnishing, or remodeling your home, or you're just tired of paying retail, don't spend another dollar. Now, you can enjoy an incredible selection of top quality name brand products priced up to 50% less than retail. Take the first step towards saving hundreds or even thousands of dollars on nearly anything for your home. Call for your free Direct Buy Insider's Guide to Buying Direct and learn what retailers don't want you to know. Each full color page of the Insider's Guide is packed with powerful information. Discover some of the hundreds of thousands of products available from over 700 name brand manufacturers. Everything, including furniture, cabinets, appliances, flooring, lighting fixtures, and so much more, all without retail markups. At Direct Buy, you can't afford to miss this valuable opportunity. Call the number on your screen now to get your own Direct Buy Insider's Guide. You'll also receive a visitor's pass and map to the Direct Buy showroom nearest you. The sooner you call, the sooner you'll be buying direct. So call now.
Historic shakeups on Wall Street and the world markets are shaken to their core as the financial community reacts. How will the fallout affect businesses and your bottom line? Stay with Fox Business today for our special night of programming. Don't miss a moment of our coverage, only on the Fox Business Network.
Let's take a live look at the big board. The Dow Jones Industrial Average as we speak. Trading has been open just about an hour and 45 minutes, down 226 points. But on really a monumental day for the financial services industry, a changing landscape. It's really remarkable at how well the broad markets have held up. But we've been talking about AIG, not AIG. That stock is tumbling 48.5% this day. And Bank of America buying Merrill Lynch is down 14%. So investors are clearly a little concerned about that deal.
There are some
Bank of America investors.
Yeah, there are some financials which are higher, maybe a little bit of a surprise. BB&T, M&T, PNC, Regions Financial, SunTrust, those names are actually up today.
Something Anton just mentioned. If the Fed cuts, you got a steepening yield curve.
The net interest margin expands. They make some more money.
They make
their basic lending.
Earn their way out of all this mess.
All right. Well, Rich, speaking of big banks, Bank of America buying a company called Merrill Lynch this weekend. You might have heard this story. It's topping our news. Rich Edson joins us now inside Bank of America's New York headquarters. Rich, what is the latest? What's the mood there?
You know, Brian, big bank becomes bigger bank, and it's starting to die down a little bit here. The media circus is starting to tail off a bit now that John Thain and Ken Lewis have given a digest of what's happened over the past 48 hours. Both men contending that the federal government did not really push or merge this or force these two companies, one to buy the other, and that it ended up really being a conversation at the beginning of the weekend with Merrill Lynch and the Federal Reserve talking about Lehman, possibly enter into some sort of deal with Lehman, and then it comes out at the other end where John Thain calls Ken Lewis up and says, why don't we talk about doing this deal perhaps? And for Bank of America, I mean, they have really further their reach when you talk about in the last couple of years with MBNA, with Countrywide, and now really getting into the investment bank game. I asked the question as to whether or not people would be losing their jobs or if that'd be known anytime soon. And both CEOs said it's going to take a while for them to flush that out. Right now, this will be done, they hope, this whole deal will be done by 2010. They want to first get Countrywide integrated into Bank of America and then begin to fully integrate Merrill Lynch into Bank of America. Merrill Lynch, it is said, will keep their name. That is what Mr. Lewis said, that Merrill Lynch will contain its name. But looking forward on this, you know, folks were asking Mr. Lewis, you know, what's next for him? I mean, ever since he took over in 2000 and over the past 7 years, there has been a whole group of acquisitions that he has undertaken. He says he's going to take a bit of a time out now, but you never know the next opportunity that might come knocking on his door. Back to you.
Rich Edson at the Bank of America New York City headquarters, a few blocks away from here. Rich, thanks very much.
We want to check in on Nicole Padalides on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with a breakdown of everything that's moving, and there are bright spots, surprisingly, in this market. Nicole?
There certainly are, and we're off of the lows of the day. We were down about 340 points early this morning when the Dow opened. You could see we were down. I have to note quickly that names like AIG, for example, I spoke to Larry Leibowitz, who's one of the spokesmen here at the NYSE. They had a record number of orders here this morning, and the national market system actually began queuing up orders. So stocks open here, but did not appear quickly on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It was somewhat intermittent. It was resolved quickly. However, when we saw the Dow down about 100, it was actually down lower. And AIG did open exactly on the bell at 9:30 a.m. at a price of $6.70. All right, let's take a look at some of these financials that are the big story here today. AIG is one that certainly everybody is waiting to hear on. I know that we're going to be hearing from New York Governor Patterson at noon, so people are waiting for that here on the floor of the exchange. But there is some relief here on Wall Street in that we're only down 216 points. Could have been much worse. Bank of America down 14%. Lehman Brothers, though, down 95% at this time. And the question is whether or not what is going to happen with AIG, whether or not they will be downgraded, and what happens at that point. Take a look at the next group. Just some more pressure on some of the financials, though some are beginning to claw their way back. I know you mentioned some of those regionals, as well as JP Morgan, another name that is with an up arrow. GE, by the way, getting really put into this group because of their financial exposure. And here's a look at some of the airlines. Of course, we've had oil down. It is at 96. It's down more than $4.50 right now, and we have up arrows for the airlines, and also UBS recommending to buy some of them. At the same time, we had United Airlines saying that they are now upping their price for the second bag to $50 a bag from $25. Back to you.
Nicole, thank you so much for that.
All right, well, we're going to get the mood out of Lehman Brothers headquarters next. You might as well. It's pretty grim there. Hurricane Ike. Don't forget about that storm putting a dent in oil production along the Gulf Coast. We'll talk more about oil, gasoline in parts of the Southeast hitting $5 a gallon. Likely a temporary shortage in gasoline. They hope so down there anyway. We're going to get that story as well. 11:21 Eastern Time. We're back right after this.
Mortgage rates are close to historic lows. Refinance with LendingTree. Consolidate your debt, lower your monthly payments, and let the Leaf work for you. It's easy.
Into this price that you're paying for Merrill.
About $7 billion, about 10% of the combined expense base.
And you expect the deal to close in the first quarter?
Correct.
Okay.
Early in the first quarter.
Early in the first quarter. Did you ask regulators for help in this situation? Obviously, you know, the government wasn't there for Lehman Brothers, but did you ask or, you know, try to pursue any help or backstop from the government on this?
None. Absolutely not.
So you saw this deal. I know John Thain made the overture, right?
Right. Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, he called me Saturday, fairly early Saturday morning, and said, "Do you think it might be time to talk and talk about the strategic opportunities?" And I said, "Yeah, we've obviously, I know John, and we've followed Merrill Lynch for a long time. You can't do a strategic planning session and look at the opportunities and not have Merrill Lynch out there. So we've known about the company, we've followed them, they're a big client, and so I was in New York in about 2.5 hours. I was in Midtown in about 2.5 hours, and we began talking."
Amazing. And the deal happens 48 hours later. Ken, can you tell us a little about your vision as far as what this industry looks like when, in fact, we do come out of this? Clearly, we're still in the middle of this upset, but you said maybe the end of 2009, maybe into 2010. The financial services sector, will it be a lot smaller? I mean, how are these firms going to make up the lost revenue, which was so significant when you look at mortgages on top of .com, so many businesses that have dried up?
All right. Well, I've said for a long time that there were too many banks chasing too few deals. Actually, you could broaden it and say there are too many financial firms chasing too few deals, because the investment banking business would be the same. I've also, since I've been CEO, been saying that I did not think the investment banking model would work long term, that wholesale funding is a tough way to always have to go. I was a little premature. It took 7 years to begin to happen, but I still believe that a wholesale funded investment bank is a tough way to go, and particularly in this environment, particularly going forward. And so I think you'll see some more consolidation. And now you may have an investment bank buy a commercial bank. You could do that, but I would be surprised if both of the big ones remaining don't look differently over the next year or 2 years. And then with the commercial banking business, we've always said that it's going to be more of a barbell, that you're going to have bigger and bigger banks, but fewer, and then a much fewer middle-sized banks, and then then you'll always have the community, the very small banks. But it's going to be more difficult each and every day for mid-sized banks to compete with large banks because they've got the better funding, they've got a better cost structure, and better brands for that matter.
Well, so right now we have what 9,000 banks, right. 9,000 banks in this country. What would your prediction be as far as how many there are in the next 5 years?
Gosh, I haven't thought about that, but maybe half.
Half. As you look at the competitive landscape, what do you need to do to best compete at this point with J.P. Morgan, who clearly is right there? The two of you are the giants. So what are you thinking about as you see your efforts just to continue to get stronger and global? What do you need to do now?
Well, first we need to have both existing companies focus on their clients and not get distracted by this. I mean, obviously, you've got a lot of water cooler talk at the moment between both, and probably a lot of other institutions as well. So the first thing we'll do is say, remain focused on your businesses and your clients. And if you have something to do with this transition or this merger, we'll let you know. But otherwise, do your job. And then of course, with the transition team, flawless transition, let's not lose any of our associates, let's not lose any clients. And then finally, going forward, it's going to be execution, execution, execution. I mean, that will really be all we'll have to do. Now, that's not easy, but if we execute well, and we will, then as I said, we have the opportunity of a lifetime.
And of course, we see situations like Washington Mutual now on the brink and others. Are there other assets out there? You've got a lot on your plate. Right. I recognize that. Right. And integrating all of these companies, it has to be a tough situation. First off, how are you planning on doing that? When do you feel that you could step back and say, okay, this company is now in place and the integration is done? And would you consider snapping up, being there for Washington Mutual, or perhaps that maybe Jamie Dimon's doing that right now, trying to figure what's next there?
Washington Mutual? No. And a lot of that is not to demean Washington Mutual. It's just it's too much regional overlap. We don't really need anything else geographically because we're in 78% of the population bases, and even more so when Merrill Lynch comes in, because they'll be in some places that that we're not, as is countrywide. So again, this is about execution, 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 because what else would we need or want?
All right. Ken, this is a great conversation. We so appreciate it. Congratulations to you once again, engineering a smart deal for your shareholders. Ken Lewis, Chairman and CEO of Bank of America, joining us here at his New York offices. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Marianne. Thanks to Mr. Lewis. Well, guys, I mean, big day here. I think Maria brought this up with Mr. Lewis, and, he alluded to the idea that you're probably not going to see a lot of standalone investment banks as we go forward right now, because it is very much a changed landscape, certainly with this deal here today. In fact, I was watching Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. Morgan Stanley off almost 9% right now. Goldman off 4.5%.
Yeah, those are really the two that everybody will be watching to see if they partner up, and that certainly was his prediction. I also thought it was really interesting. She got to it right at the beginning. We were all scratching our heads at that $29 a share price. He said, "Oh yeah, we did the due diligence. J.C. Flowers was there. They had been in before. They were helpful to us, and they said, it's night and day compared to before." Dylan, I don't know. What do you think? Do you believe that?
It is impossible to answer any of these questions, quite honestly. I certainly am not intelligent enough or qualified enough to answer them, as we've watched a nuclear blowback obliterate Lehman Brothers, force the sale of Merrill Lynch, put Fannie and Freddie in government custody, et cetera. So I quite candidly don't feel qualified to answer a question of any kind about what exactly lies ahead, other than to point to the facts as we now know them, which is that an excess of borrowing to the tune of $30 to $40 for each borrowed dollar, done by the investment banks knowingly, at the same time that credit standards were thrown out the window in America, such that the purchase of anything from a flat screen to a microwave to a house was possible without any paperwork. If you want to know what happens if you put those two things together, I welcome you to September 14th, 2008. You have a recipe for disaster. Yeah, we'll move forward. Clearly, we will move forward with less available credit and much higher lending standards. And the conversation, regardless of which investment banks are in control of the money or what form they take, the real question will become, what does the American economy look like as it functions with less available credit and higher standards for access to that credit, from the private equity firms to mom and pop on Main Street, which I presume is something we'll get into going
forward. Well, Lewis was saying that he expected continued housing declines through the first half of next year. So, perhaps more pain to come as far as all that goes. One of the things that was really interesting to me anyway was the speed at which they were able to do this deal. And he did point out that he said the marks at Merrill were very conservative. So that speaks to perhaps the valuation of some of this debt on the Lehman side. Anyway, we're going to continue talking about all of this throughout the morning. Of course, we'll be focusing on the financials' impact on Wall Street and on your money. Coming up next, Michelle Caruso-Cabrera is going to join us. She's going to take a closer look at Bank of America and CEO Ken Lewis, the new king of Wall Street, you could call him. Keep it right here on The Call. We'll be right back.
You guys need a lift?
Yeah, I get about 23 on the highway.
But can it crush cars?
Surprisingly fuel efficient. Ride ready. The new Pilot, only from Honda.
1,944.
Hello, Tony.
Where am I?
This is your mind.
Who are they?
They're your ideas about investing.
Why are they so small?
Not all of them are small. He's been here for a while. We think you should let him out.
Power shares. Invest like never before. Investors should consider investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses before investing. To obtain a prospectus which contains this and other info, visit powershares.com. Please read carefully before investing.
Where do you see NBC?
Anywhere, anytime.
When do you see NBC?
When I need business headlines in real time.
Why do you see NBC?
Because my business is my life.
Because the where, the when, and the why is all about you. CNBC 360.
Reach for crayon and draw. Pick up ball and throw. Entertaining yourself used to be easy. But it got tougher. What if it could be easy again? What if there was a place you could find and watch the shows and movies you wanted? Fancast.com. Enter entertainment.
Protect your family with life insurance from Prudential.
Hey, Dad, what's life insurance?
Well, life insurance is something parents buy. So in case something happens to them, you kids will be okay.
Oh. Do we have life insurance?
Yeah, we do.
Good.
Yeah, it is good.
It's as American as baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. But with sagging sales and killer competition, can the country's largest car maker come back? Phil LeBeau takes an exclusive look inside this American icon on their 100th anniversary. Saving General Motors, a CNBC original production, tomorrow.
Welcome back to The Call. I'm Melissa Francis. Let's get you caught up on the markets on this historic day on Wall Street. The Dow right now is well off its lows of the session. It had been down 344 points. Right now it is bounced back. Was a little higher earlier, but right now it's down a little better than 2%, almost 250 points. 11,174 is the level there. The S&P, obviously, the financial sector is the biggest drag right there. It's down about 2%, 25 points. 1226 is the level there. Take a look at the NASDAQ. It is down by about 1.2% as well. I want to show you crude oil. That has been a huge story today, falling pretty dramatically. Right now it's made a little bit of a rebound, but it's still down almost 5% as a lot of people in that market just liquidate and get out. 96.33 is the last trade there. Trish.
Thanks so much, Melissa. Well, with Bank of America's surprise purchase of Merrill Lynch this weekend, there's a new king, you could say, on Wall Street. BofA CEO Ken Lewis. Michelle Caruso-Cabrera has more on just exactly who he is. We just saw him there, Michelle.
Yep, and if today doesn't make it obvious, Trish, Ken Lewis is an executive with guts of steel.
He likes doing acquisitions. Listen to the list of deals he's presided over. Not only Merrill Lynch today, but Countrywide, credit card company MBNA, LaSalle, U.S. Trust, Fleet. He's made clear he's wanted to own Merrill Lynch forever. Since he took the helm of the company, he dreamed of owning the nation's biggest brokerage network. But all along, it was too expensive. At least that's what people familiar with the situation tell me. That is, until he was able to scoop it up this weekend.
Merrill Lynch has quite a bit of liquidity, and I think they could have seen their way through this. And so you would have the issue of them going on their separate way, or you could have had somebody else come in, and we thought there were other people that were interested in buying a stake, and missed it completely.
Now, as you guys were highlighting earlier during your conversation, there is controversy about the price he paid, but clearly he doesn't think he paid too much. Lewis likes predictable businesses with annuity streams, hence why he's so interested in wealth management. People who know him tell me he looks at the company's books every single morning, knows where the earnings stand day by day. He's been the head of Bank of America since 2001. Started there, though, in 1969 as a credit analyst, of all things, when it was still NCNB. He's all business, according to those who know him, but when he vacations, he likes to go to Aspen and read. Back to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Two big financials outside of the commercial banking world and inside of the investment banking world now remain. At the outset of this year, of course, there were five: Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. Now there are two: Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, with two of those names disappearing over the course of the past 24 hours. Before us, Joe Livornia, Deutsche Bank Securities; Len Blum, Managing Director, Westwood Capital; Dennis Gartman, founder of the Gartman Letter. I want to start, if I could, Dennis, with the market's absorption of all of this news, which with the averages largely down 2 to 3%, some things obviously in excess of that, but by all appearances taking this in relative stride. In other words, the market's absorption away from the obvious destruction seems stable and decent, and I'm curious to what you attribute that behavior.
Well, I think the Fed has made it abundantly clear, Dylan, that they're going to offer liquidity. Obviously, there's some great sigh of relief that at least one major firm was bought out at a premium, i.e. Bank of America taking over Merrill Lynch. We have seen this before. The dollar hasn't fallen as violently as one might have thought. And the fact that crude oil is down $5 is certainly a sanguine circumstance. So put all those things together, everybody seems to be breathing a rather great sigh of relief. But are we out of the woods? Oh, far from it.
So let's focus on Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley for a moment. But before we do that, let's understand some of the facts surrounding the distress at Lehman, Bear for that matter, or AIG, which is still in a precarious state, down half of its value once again today. And what I mean is, this appears to be largely triggered by aggressive action by the ratings agencies. In other words, the ratings agencies will come in, whether it's Moody's or Standard & Poor's or who, and say, you need more money than you currently have in order to account for the vast liabilities that you're currently carrying. And then when you are aggressively and directly requested to fulfill that obligation, to raise that money, and are not able to do it, that it results in either a bankruptcy for Lehman Brothers or what we're seeing now is the depreciation in AIG. I go with that fairly long-winded explanation for the following reason. Joe Livornia, what is your understanding of the vulnerability that Goldman Sachs and or Morgan Stanley could sustain to the ratings agencies were they to decide to bring this gun out? The metaphor I've been offered was it's like playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the 6 chambers.
Dylan, I think in those two instances, Merrill, or rather Morgan and Goldman, I think it's different. I think the issue for Lehman always whether was the SpinCo with marks 85 cents on the dollar were accurate, and I think that's really what it came down to. So the question really is financial transparency, and if the proper marks were taken, then conceivably, in theory, the institution would be alive. So I think that's really what it comes down to.
Go ahead, Lem.
I agree completely. I think, when you compare what happened at Lehman to some of the other investment banks, Lehman had opportunities to raise capital. Instead, it bought back shares. I think that there was, I think that Dick Fuld made the classic trader's mistake in that he fell in love with his position. He just really believed the assets were worth more than other people thought they were worth. And he didn't didn't take the opportunity to make his first loss his best loss.
As awful as that explanation may be, Dennis Gartman, in some ways it's more comforting to believe that Dick Fuld overplayed his hand and mismanaged his book at Lehman Brothers, and as a result of his mismanagement and his executives' mismanagement, the firm blew up. That's a more comforting thought, quite honestly, than to think that there's a broader issue that is of unknown variables that the rating agencies can turn over dead bodies at any investment bank and create such a calamity. Is that do you interpret it as that this is Dick Fuld's failure?
Oh, I think it's a very good way to look at it. I think Mr. Fuld did exactly the wrong thing. He averaged down into a losing trade. He did more of the things that were not working. And when you do that as a trader, you lose. The market knows that you've done a bad trade. It will continue to punish you. He had plenty of time. He was told after Bear Stearns, clean this up. He didn't. He ended up doing the wrong thing, buying into his own shares instead of going out and finding capital. So was this a bad decision on Lehman's part? It's very sad to see what has occurred here. Lehman is a great client of mine. They are old friends of mine there. But this was a bad decision. He had 6 months at least to clean the mess up, and he simply refused. Now, is that hubris on his part? Perhaps, but it's very sad to see what has happened. Goldman and Morgan, I think, are completely different circumstances.
Understood, and I can see that the two of you, Joe and Len, agree with that assessment. We'll be talking to all of you guys frequently, I am certain. Trish, what's going on?
Okay, Dylan, well, when we come back, did the Federal Reserve really do enough here to help the faltering financials? We're going to have our all-star panel weigh in on that one. Plus, a look at how banking failures could change the landscape of corporate compensation. Will Wall Street reject stock options? We have all of that coming up only on The Call. Melissa, Dylan, myself, back in 2 minutes.
The Dow Jones World Sustainability Index is brought to you by Allianz. Financial solutions from A to Z. Allianz. The Dow Jones World Sustainability Index was brought to you by Allianz. Financial solutions from A to Z. Allianz. This CNBC program is brought to you by Morgan Stanley.
The world, the markets, the flow of ideas, flow of money, experience, the flow of goods, reputation, capital, knowledge of the marketplace, research, the political reality, the economic reality, practical reality, relationships, brain power, the wisdom, the world. Morgan Stanley, Worldwise.
So, I'm on this flight to Europe, and I'm working on my meeting slides, and I notice that my seat has this whole control panel that lets me get into this zen-like position. And I get the remote and find that documentary everybody got to see but me because, well, all I do is work. And then I hit a button, and my seat goes all the way flat. And there's a duvet. A duvet on a plane? I could so get used to this.
The new International Business Class, only on American. We know why you fly.
You're watching the Redskins run out the clock, then you find out the Bears just punched it in for 6 and you missed it. With DirecTV, you're alerted anytime a team's about to score.
Get real-time alerts and see every play inside the 20, only on DirecTV.
All right, firefighters, settle down. How about the budget? And the taxes.
What page you list?
Anyone want better roads?
We do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. A lot of paper to tell us we need clean water. Need clean water, guys? Aye. All right, this is the easiest job I've ever had. We're out of here.
Get work done now. Communicate in less than a second with rugged Nextel Direct Connect phones. Only on the Now Network.
When Rick comes home, we're gonna buy our first house.
But we're not wasting any time searching for our perfect place.
Now's a great time to buy a home. No matter where you are in the world, RE/MAX can help you find your perfect place. Visit RE/MAX.com today.
Discover the secrets of successful trading with eSignal Learning. Attend a free live or online seminar, and you'll meet our experts who will teach you how to trade under any market condition. You'll get answers to all of your trading questions, and you'll improve your trading skills regardless of your current level. Don't wait. Attend this free 2-hour seminar and position yourself for greater trading success. Seating is limited, so act today. Call 800-322-9050 or visit our website for more information.
Today on Closing Bell, Maria's one-on-one with Meredith Whitney. She got it right. Now, what's her forecast for the financials and your money? 3 Eastern, CNBC today.
Okay, take a look where the market is trading right now. It is down 286 points, a lot better than it was, though. It was down 344 points. AIG, Dow component, accounting for about 54 points of that loss so far. It has lost more than half of its value today. Trish.
Okay, well, more now on what could arguably here be the biggest financial market crisis in history. We want to ask, did the Fed really do enough here to help the failing financials? Here to weigh in, we have Vincent Reinhart, former Federal Reserve Director of Monetary Affairs, currently with the American Enterprise Institute, CNBC's Steve Luceman, and today's guest contributor, Joe Lavorgna. Joe, I'm going to start with you. I mean, you saw the Fed trying to put together a plan here on Friday, which, you know, to most people really seemed rather unrealistic. The idea that your top investment banks, your top people at the table there, were going to chip in some money to buy off Lehman's bad assets, while at the same time allowing Barclays or Bank of America to come in and buy the clean bank for really pennies on the dollar, if you think about it, thereby giving them the advantage.
Right. I mean, I think the Fed and Treasury made the bet, Trish, that given what had taken place already, the market kind of discounting the possibility of another broker-dealer going down, they could risk failure, meaning letting a large institution fail. That's exactly what's happened. And to this point, the markets, having been very orderly, seem to have borne out that policymaker's gamble.
So they were willing to let it fail. I mean, back to this question, Vince, of whether or not they did enough to prevent it from not failing. Do you think they did?
I think they did exactly the right thing. The resources of the federal government are vast, but they're not unlimited. You can't have an unconditional backstop to financial firms. So they had to draw a line somewhere. They drew it this weekend, that line at Lehman. Why? Because they assumed that the creditors of Lehman were sophisticated, that Lehman itself had enough time to adjust, and they probably took a good look at its positions and decided it wasn't interconnected enough to risk systemic problems.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, it was just kind of crazy, because if you thought if the Fed had backstopped Lehman, then they might have been responsible for doing the same thing with Merrill Lynch, and then where does it end? Do you go to Morgan Stanley? I mean, it really could have turned into a situation that was a constant bailout.
You know, Trish, I just want to say that I have tremendous respect for Vince, and I've never said anything like this on TV, but relative to Vince, but I don't think either of the things that he thinks are true are actually true when it comes to the Fed, and let me explain why. I don't know, Vince, that there was actually an offer on the table for the Fed or the Treasury to say we're not going to get involved with, okay? Note that we have no idea, by the way, that the private banks had a number to shoot at either. So we can give the Fed plaudits for not coming to the table, but we don't know that there was an offer on the table for them to come to. That's one.
Back up for a second. What do you mean? That you say that again, if you would. I mean, are you saying that you don't know as Barclays or BofA were serious enough?
Actually, if there was really a number on the table such that between here and the end point there was a hole that needed filling, I'm not sure that that number was ever on the table. I'm also hearing, by the way, Trish,
I've heard that there actually was, that Barclays was a very serious candidate and did have a number on the table. I'm hearing something else
about that, Trish. I'm hearing, by the way, and I need to run this down, but I am hearing that the UK regulator objected to Barclays' participation.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I heard the exact same thing.
Was a hole to fill. Here's the second thing I want to get to, which is this, that the fact that the Fed didn't act in this case may not be because it's suddenly seen the light. It may be because it knows there is so much other stuff out there that it eventually may have to actually get involved in. I'm not sure I would see not taking a drink this time as a sign of teetotaling.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I think, and Vince, your thought on this. I mean, I think that they probably, had they had the Fed willing to backstop the losses at SpinCo or guarantee SpinCo, they probably could have gotten a deal done for the good bank.
Okay, so let me make 2 points, and I will disagree and agree with Steve. First, there are enough assets that the Fed could have lifted out of Lehman's balance sheet to make it attractive to some suitor. So if the Fed had taken that action, they could have made it attractive. I mean, Ken Lewis sort of suggested that during your interview earlier in the day. Second, Ultimately, the problem is the firms at the core of this financial system don't have enough capital. And it may not come from the private sector, in which case, ultimately, the government is going to have to be providing that capital. So this isn't by any means over. I agree completely with that.
Okay, on that note, sorry, Joe, we got to run. We're out of time. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Vince, Steve, and Joe, we'll be right back.
Powering the Planet is brought to you by BP.
It's a pretty big country. Have we found everything?
We have oil on our shores.
We should work hard to explore for new sources of oil.
The oil companies have to look into alternative sources of fuel.
No, I still believe that you have to have a balance.
I mean, U.S. needs to produce more.
At Fidelity, traders learn from the pros. Say you want to backtest an entire portfolio of stocks. Market experts show you how through Fidelity's extensive trading knowledge center. And Fidelity gives you free research from 15 independent firms with accuracy scores to help you decide which analyst to trust. Find out why more and more active traders are turning to Fidelity for a smarter way to trade online.
Trade like a pro. Trade with Fidelity.
Next Monday at 8/7 Central, the Heroes premiere event begins. First, join the cast as they bring you exclusive sneak peeks of the new season. Then, the anticipated premiere of Heroes. It all starts at the early time of 8/7 Central, next Monday on NBC.
When we called Empire for a flooring estimate, we didn't plan on purchasing that day. But we got a deal we couldn't pass up.
Empire offers brand name flooring sold at the lowest price, guaranteed. Choose from an incredible selection right at home. And we install next day. Get the lowest price, guaranteed. Plus no payments till 2010.
They did an excellent job. We will definitely use Empire again.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today.
All night, Dora. Meet Nick Jr.'s Dora. She's coming to your town. Adventures all around. You can dance with Dora, you can hug Dora, you can take a picture with Dora. Meet Nick Jr.'s Dora. She's coming to your town.
Meet Dora the Explorer at the National Aquarium September 27th and 28th. Have a free photo taken or make reservations for a special breakfast with Dora. Visit aqua.org for details.
A seismic shift rocks Wall Street. Lehman, Merrill, AIG.
Let's give you an indication. Investment bank is dead.
I think it's done. Is your money safe? Stay with the network you trust for every story from every angle.
There is a human toll here.
Fast, accurate, actionable, unbiased. CNBC.
A clear understanding of the problem, which is insufficient amount of money associated with large debts, means that banks that have sufficient capital, that have enough money, like the ones that you see, I'm going to flip a few past you here, will become potentially that much more attractive. PNC Financial near higher levels. A longer-term chart would be more illustrative than the intraday, quite candidly. Northern Trust, another one. J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bancorp. There are others. I thank Joe Terranova for flagging my attention to some of those names. But think about which banks have large capital reserves on their balance sheets and which do not. That's what the street is doing this morning, and they are pricing each of those banks in accordance with that view. Melissa.
All right, thanks, Dylan. Wall Street rocked by the collapse of Bear Stearns, now feeling more pain with Lehman as the latest, and getting hard hit are employees who are paid in stock and stock options. Will Wall Street change the way it pays employees in the future? Here to weigh in is Dan Pedrati, director of the AFL-CIO's Office of Investment. We also have Brian Foley, executive compensation expert, and our guest contributor, Joe Lavorgna. Brian, I mean, a lot of people that work for Lehman waking up not only thinking about what they're going to do next, what their next job is going to be, but also, all the options that they were given as part of their bonus. I talked to somebody else who does compensation on Wall Street at a very big bank, and he was telling me that the average is about 25%. That you get at the higher level, of course, it gets closer to 75%. And it's locked in for a long period of time. And even then, it's looked down upon when you sell it. Do you think that will change in the future?
That remains to be seen. We're still in a shakeout period. The Currency, I don't think we're going to go to a primarily cash system. I think in the long run it makes sense to have a large equity component because you want people to have skin in the game going forward, and you want there to be a price if they decide to leave and go someplace else.
True, but Dan, you say that, having a lot of options, of course, encourages excessive risk-taking because you want to see that stock price go higher.
It does. I mean, both at the rank and file level, we're seeing what a terrible choice, a terrible option stock options are, both short and long term. But at the CEO level, there's a lesson here that shouldn't be missed. And that's the link between the pay of these executives and the subprime crisis, in that a lot of them had large option grants that incentivized them to take risk and base their rewards on financial results without any account of the risk that they were taking on. So, that's something that we shouldn't forget in the larger context.
I think that's way too much of a push to make that argument. There are, first of all, these people were paid with restricted stock as well as options, and they're paying the price for it now because they're going to end up. If you're at Lehman, a senior person at Lehman, you've essentially worked for the last couple of years for salary only. That's a huge price to pay.
Yeah, they're paying the price, but society's paying the price too. And that if their incentive comp was based on things like revenue or return on equity, they were taking risk at the exact wrong time when the bubble was enlarging. And there's also a larger point here around context, right? And that is, we're living through a crisis that's brought about by deregulation. That's an economy that's crushing working families. In the end, is going to catch up sooner or later with Wall Street.
Oh, Dan, you're opening up a whole can of worms. I want to stay where you are. We've got to take a quick break, and we're going to continue this discussion in just a second.
This CNBC program is brought to you by Toyota, moving forward.
MPG. It's a very popular topic lately, and rightly so. We're proud to say the IS-250 leads its class in MPG. But MPG isn't everything. You have to consider resale, reliability, all 7 costs to see why the IS-250 has the lowest cost of ownership in its class. See how they add up at Lexus.com/intelligent choice, and then visit your Lexus dealer.
Your number. Every person has one. But what is it? It's what you'll need to have saved to retire the way you want. We're ING. And when it comes to planning your retirement number, we can help make it easier. Learn more at ingyournumber.com. ING. Your future made easier.
Every night you sleep, but your dreams are wide awake because ambitions never sleep, aspirations never sleep, goals never sleep, hopes never sleep, opportunities never sleep. The world never sleeps. That's why we work around the world. That's why we work around the clock to turn dreams into realities. That's why Citi never sleeps.
I'd like a place where I can entertain the ladies.
This is so not right.
Now's a great time to buy a home. Find your perfect place at RE/MAX.com. Visit RE/MAX.com today.
There are plenty of lawyers out there, believe me. So where do you go to find the one that's right for you? The phone book? A friend, maybe. For the right lawyer for your specific needs, there's only one place to go. Lawyers.com.
Lawyers.com offers exclusive Martindale Hubbell peer review ratings and reliable lawyer profiles to help you find the expertise you need right in your area. If you need a lawyer, you've got options. Find the help that's right for you at Lawyers.com.
For years, low-dose aspirin has been a cornerstone of heart attack prevention. Now there's new Bayer with Heart Advantage. Ask your doctor about the only low-dose aspirin product that helps lower the risk of heart attack and lowers cholesterol. Be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin or modify an aspirin regimen.
Tonight, Kramer's exclusive one-on-one with Wachovia CEO. With financials in turmoil and the market on edge, what does he see for the future? Mad Money, CNBC tonight.
U.S. markets re-extending their losses. AIG, that is not a typo. 70% of its equity value today obliterated. That following a 40% decline over the course of the day Friday. The magnitude of the decline, if we can get a longer-term chart, will be delivered immediately. If you look inside the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it is enduring those AIG extended losses and is now itself returning to its lows. I want to focus, if I can, on AIG. Forget all the rest of this. Joe Livornia, they are the one firm that as yet doesn't have a solution. Merrill has a buyer. Lehman has a bankruptcy filing. Bear Stearns is in the hands of Jamie Dimon. AIG's bigger than all of them last I checked, and was desperately staggering around Wall Street last night trying to get the Federal Reserve to make them a loan.
Right, that's the issue, Dylan. I mean, there's this too big to fail doctrine. Are they going to get bailed out in some way? Certainly the market will not find a bottom until some of these big players have access to capital or their books are marked down. Of course, the problem is nobody exactly trusts the marks of anybody. So hopefully this thing gets resolved. But again, it's really hard to see
hopefully it gets resolved. With all due respect, it's been resolved to the tune of the obliteration of all of the equity now in AIG, too, which is down another 70%.
Right. The issue, Dylan, though, is whether they're going to somehow get funding over the next few days.
Okay, guys, we got to leave it there. We're off 300 right now on the Dow, more than 300. That's it for the call. I am Trish Regan.
I'm Melissa Francis.
I'm Dylan Radigan. We're on AIG right now with Power Lunch, Bill Griffith and Sue Herrera.
And the drama continues on Wall Street. We're very glad you're with us on Power Lunch this Monday. I'm Bill Griffith.
And I'm Sue Herrera. It is a special edition of Power Lunch. It's an historic trading day on Wall Street, and we have it all covered for you.
There will always be the winners and the losers after the kind of weekend we've had. You can consider Lehman the loser, the Chapter 11 filing by that company this morning. That's the headquarters on the left-hand side. And a surprising winner out of the weekend, Bank of America, after 48 hours of negotiations. That was it, buying Merrill Lynch in a stock deal that we're all still trying to absorb. And right now, the Dow is down 300 points at this hour.
It could have been much worse, according to a lot of people, which is why at 12.
Good afternoon. We begin with a developing story in Chester County where several suspicious devices have been found in a large parking garage. The bomb squad is on the scene.
That's right. The scene is the 100 block of Walnut Street in Westchester, the Moss Teller parking garage. Authorities were called out there just before 8 o'clock this morning. Chopper 6 is live now over the scene. As you can see, it's a large structure right here in the heart of Westchester, and police have sealed off the entire area. Action News reporter Vernon Odom is live there on the ground. And Vern, what's the very latest there from the scene?
Continuing tension here in the city of Westchester this morning after a parking lot.
A shocking ending to a weekend of frantic negotiations, which failed to save the company from collapse. Now, after 158 years in business,